All right, here we are again, figuring it out. This time, talking about ransomware. Sort of an interesting topic with
Everyone's
everything going on.
favorite.
Yeah, right. Everything was all about the ransomware before the pandemic hit. Now it's different kind of incident response or incident management.
Hmm.
So again, I'll throw it your way. I know I have my thoughts on this, but not sure what your thoughts on are on the incidents that we typify as ransomware.
Yeah, look, and I think the message of this, by the way, for those tuning in, is we want to give you a couple steps. And yeah, some of this is going to be pretty obvious for what you should do, but I'll say that old common sense isn't all that common thing because we see folks routinely struggling with this. Let's define ransomware. You get something that comes into your environment and it starts encrypting things. Maybe it's on a user machine, maybe it's on network drives, maybe it's all of the above. One way or the other, your business is impacted. So the first thing to do is panic. No, actually, no, let's not panic. Let's take a deep breath and let's make some smart decisions. And I think for me, it's that first step in incident response. You can call it triage, you can call it contain. You're the guy with the medical background. I still like triage because I think it speaks to understand what you're dealing with. You don't need to know the specific strain. It doesn't necessarily matter yet, but start to identify who's impacted. Is it, Sally down in accounting? Is it Matt in IT or InfoSec? And if it is just one person, awesome, but it's probably not, right? Let's not rush to find patient zero right away unless it's obvious. Let's get this thing under control. Don't let the network burn down around us because we're spinning up all these resources.
Yeah, and that is the one thing that I continue to see when we get called into these incidents, and kind of post incident sometimes if we're brought in to kind of help on the preparation and then the detection piece because of an incident. And that's what I think a lot of things that people are missing right now are that prep and detection and reporting piece, of the incident response sort of cycle. But when they do have that incident, it's people spend, they do the triage. I don't think that they spend enough time on the containment or sort of that, neutralization before they start to dig into the why. I think people almost always want to get to why and how did this happen before it's like, have we stopped the bleeding? It is that triage piece, right? It's let's make sure that it's contained and it doesn't go any further. I mean, we've heard enough of this with the pandemic that's going on. Like, we need to contain the problem before we need to go to the neutralization and kind of look at post-incident type stuff. But the other big thing that we continue to see is that over-resourcing. And it's hard, right? This is a thing that, in emergency services, people talk about all the time, but like, it is hard because you want to have the correct people on a call or on a meeting and dealing with the situation. And it's harder to get people involved after the fact or when you're trying to make decisions. But at the same time, if you don't have good information, it's really hard to have that information or get the right people together. So what we walk into a lot of times from a cybersecurity perspective or a services firm perspective is that we're jumping on a call with like legal counsel, outside counsel, sometimes insurance companies, department heads, executive management, sometimes media relations, all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, what happened? Like, we don't know. Like, all right, well, like,
glad everyone could join the call. Thanks.
Yeah, and then you have 5 different IT providers on, or their internal IT, and everybody's like, well, this is what we should do. This is what we should do, and nobody's really running point for the actual situation. There's no person in command of the entire thing to be able to say, we need to figure out how we can stop it. Like, what do we segment, or what do we throw the switches on to make sure that it stays here? And then what's the impact that we've already experienced, and how do we move forward? As far as like the neutralization and recovering from it, I don't know. I know you've talked about this a little bit, but I think there's almost like simple type, you know what I mean? It's almost like everybody talked about doing pandemic planning, right?
All that
everyone thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, I definitely did. I will cop to that. My pandemic section. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Matt in 2005 was very wrong. So, but what I'll say is, like, all that prep stuff that you mentioned, but I don't want to totally skip over it, but we kind of jump to like what to do now that you got it. Like, prep's over if you got it, but hopefully you've got good backups that you've tested. Hopefully you're doing some kind of monitoring. It's not a total surprise. But what makes me think there is maybe we should talk through very quickly what kind of happens when you get all those people in the room. And I'm not trying to encourage or discourage. As always, disclaimers apply here. Go talk to your legal counsel and do all that today before you have an incident. But what we see as an incident responder is when you get their insurance company, know they're probably going to have their own preset list of incident responders they want you to work through. And I'm not necessarily attacking that, although I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm biased because I work for BTV. But just know, like many things, insurance companies want to reduce their costs. So they're going to pre-negotiate rates, and it may or may not necessarily be in your own best interest. Leave that up to folks to decide. But we get sometimes engaged and then get unengaged because insurance got involved. So know that's going to happen. Know that the insurance company is going to come into play. They're going to have their say. So I'm not discouraging you from informing them. Follow your policy and plan, but just know that they could throw, you might have something mapped out of how it's going to work, and the insurance company might encourage you to do otherwise, and you have to make a business decision. We can't tell you what to do, right? Yeah. We're on the sidelines ready to help, but you have to tell us when you need us. Good.
I think it comes down to a lot of times what we've seen for folks. I think it comes down to, what is sort of the chain of command in dealing with the incident? Where does the buck stop, or who's being looked at to make the decisions to make sure that the incident comes to an end? And a lot of times, unfortunately, we see that people that haven't prepared, IT managers being forced into a situation where they're trying to make the right decisions, but they have executive management or legal counsel or, essentially somebody higher than their pay grade weighing in on the, I think we should. And it's like, okay, well, we need to look at who has the subject matter expertise and to kind of have them running point. And there's delegation, there's input, and there's questions that are going to be asked, but somebody needs to be in control of that situation and making decisions. The other big thing, I think, is that prep stuff that if you haven't done it, then you're going to be making it up. It's like disaster recovery. It's too late, get over it. And then I think the last big thing that we always that we preach in any incident is that, like you said, kind of starting off, it's like everybody take a deep breath, right? Cooler, calmer heads always prevail. And guess what? Nobody's going to make good decisions on the fly without good information and sort of a calm demeanor. And unfortunately, people think that sometimes it's like the end of the world when they have an incident. I always, made the joke. It was like, I think a lot of times I bring some calm to the situation because I'm like, it's not a life or death. Like, nobody's going to die because you have ransomware. Realistically, there are worse things that can happen to you.
Yeah.
So let's start from there and go, you know.
Yeah, and look, know what is and isn't possible too, by the way, right? Like, we get asked, now some of the folks that have been around the block a bit might kind of chuckle at this, but we get asked pretty regularly, like, can you unencrypt my stuff? Probably not. Now, there's some exception to that, but generally speaking, unless something comes out or has already come out for that specific strain, and essentially the bad guys use bad crypto, so shame on them, but good for you, we're not getting the data back. So if, it's pretty simple. Patch, harden, monitor, have good backup and recovery, and ransomware should be maybe annoying, but largely a shoulder shrug. You don't do any of those things, or a couple of those things, you're going to have a real problem on your hands for dealing with it. So, as we kind of move on from, knowing what you're supposed to know, what happens post-incident? I think that's also key, or not knowing, just knowing what you can and can't change about that. Know that we don't have any kind of magic decryptor. There's no magic hard drive, anything we can do. But, what's next? Post-incident, you survived the ransomware, you contained it, you figured out who patient 0 was, it came in by email or hyperlink. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter, but now what?
Yeah, that and drop the attribution game, right? Everyone's always like, okay, well, we found where it came in, and like now what we can attribute this to, or where did it come from? It's like, honestly, in most cases, who cares, right? You're not going to be able to prosecute on this. And it's not like you're going to go back and seek some sort of revenge on people. We don't need to go down the attribution rabbit hole for this stuff. It's kind of like, take your lessons, take your lumps from things like this, actually internalize some of the stuff there where you did have some shortcomings, and, better prepare yourself, because it's probably going to happen again, or it's going to be attempted again. It's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, if you don't assume your users can get bad stuff, you haven't been around, right? So they will. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter if it came from China, North Korea, or here stateside. fix your stuff, right? Patch, harden, monitor, and have good backup. And that's not the only things you need to do, but that'll go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Under probably what we did the last couple of weeks. I know it was definitely under the time allotment for Hacker
Ransomware
Movies.
simple.
I think I think, yeah, right. Ransomware simple. There's never the same situation, but I think that was, I think we figured a few things out in that one.
Hopefully so. Well, let us know what
Yeah.
you think, folks. Have a good rest of the day. Be well.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.